90% skill, 15% concentrated power of will, 5% pleasure, 50% pain, 100% reason to remember the name.
Hey guys, this is as usual RedpoleQ, and I am here along with
Golden Fox,
McConnell,
and we have some very interesting questions. We had someone write in and ask about a little bit more about us. They wanted to know how we got started in Asia. They wanted to know about our development as we, got better with girls. And, I think you'll be especially interested to hear about McConnell's early adventures in girldom. and also we'll have some interesting, quote unquote, although maybe wild, bizarre, depending on what you consider to be normal, outlandish sex stories as well. So, which is ironic. We were just talking about blood sports yesterday.
That's true.
Oh,
Neither of us have actually done any blood sports.
okay. I don't even know what that is.
How would you?
I don't know. I guess it's just like blood play during sex.
Wow.
I don't know specifically.
And we're not talking about from a girl's period.
Yeah.
No, like blood from veins.
Oh,
Yeah.
People do this kind of stuff.
well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. So anyway, we were discussing this yesterday. So it's interesting that today we're supposed to talk about our wild sex stories. I've never seen blood sports either.
Neither have I.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I'm just aware of their existence.
doesn't it just happen in Eastern Europe?
I thought it happened in Canada too.
Vlad the
Isn't that how people keep warm
You'll
in the
die.
Canadian winter?
No, dude, you'll die. It's so cold there. Blood can't leave the body.
Okay, so why don't we start with the first question, which is so Golden Fox, how did you get started with your Asia adventures?
Like, just coming to Asia, generally?
Yeah.
I guess it was coming to Asia, so I was like on Facebook. I can still remember it, and I saw a buddy, and him and his girl were, I don't know where they were. I was like, where are you? And he's like, oh, I'm in Daegu, South Korea. And I was just about to finish my degree, and he's like, you can come here if you have a BA and
Was
teach.
this girl cute?
She was Russian. So she was a very pretty girl.
Came all the way to Korea and got herself a Russian.
Well, they actually got married.
Oh, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
I did part 1. I didn't go part 3.
You didn't do that, yeah. No,
I'm a quitter. That's
yeah, we're gonna talk about that. Yeah, so I went there like immediately when I found out all I needed was a BA. Got there. I ended up dating a Russian girl that year as well.
Really? Are there a lot of Russians in
There's a lot of
Daegu?
Russians there.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, no one writes about this when they talk about Daegu. I thought you said you hated it there.
I did.
You don't like Russian girls?
Oh,
not really.
no, it wasn't. I mean, it's just like just dating one Russian girl doesn't change a whole year's experience, right? Like there was a lot of other things.
I don't know. It depends on where you are. So I'm glad you were somewhere in your life where dating
I was like, not
a
enough.
Russian girl just wasn't really.
It's not enough for me.
I wish
Actually,
I
you know
could
what,
say
maybe-
the same thing at 23.
Maybe that was when I was 25 when I came back a second time. But yeah, so the city was cool, but everyone said before I went, they're like, "Oh, you're going to Asia? You're going to marry an Asian woman." And I was like, "Nah, there's no way." I never really noticed Asian girls in high school. So there wasn't literally, I can say I didn't go there. I just thought it'd be a great adventure to travel. And then after a week, I was like, "Oh my God, look at these beings. They wear these high heels and these high stockings and these dresses, and their makeup is perfect. Oh my God." And
Don't forget about the hair.
What's that?
The hair. Don't forget about the hair.
The hair was amazing too. Yeah, I wrote about that, like how great the hair was. I was like, their hair is wonderful, and they take such good care of it. And it's just like, it's shocking when you first get there. It was just shocking. So, but I would say it was a bad year. And I say that because like I saw the girls and I was like, all right, I want girls, but there was nothing in between. So that my brain went, these girls I want in my life. And then I just went out drinking like 3 nights a week. Just boozed and was hoping they would come into my life, and it was just a messy year. The math, I didn't have the math right, but I was in the right place. Yeah, right place, wrong time, maybe. Yeah. I don't know how that connects with how you guys were. I know McConnell's experience was different slightly.
Wait, but
I tried to move on. I go, move on to McConnell.
Nice try there, buddy. Nice try. going to be Barbara Walters here. I'm going to pin you down, get you in the corner, and make you squirm.
We need to talk about America, making it great again. Enough about me.
So that was like and how was your first 3 months? Oh, that was your first year.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was my year. It was a crazy year.
And then after that, you left and went back to...
Yeah, I left. I was like, enough of that. I went home for 6 months.
Oh.
And then I was like, let's try that again.
Oh, was that when you were trying to, do the photography stuff?
Yeah, trying to do art in Toronto. Yeah. Okay. And then just decided, go back to Asia, just do it smarter, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I had no idea that.
Really?
That I knew. I thought that you. Yeah, I didn't realize you'd gone like so early, right after school.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, but you were not like a big Asia fan when you first came.
No, I just wanted to leave the country.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think if your friend had posted a picture in a different country, you would have gone to a different country?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it just happened to be.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Yeah. Well, I also came to Asia right after school, but it was a different kind of right after school. What were you gonna say?
I was actually going to ask you, your friend, whatever happened to him? Oh, he got married to that same girl.
Yeah.
But is he still living in Daegu?
No. I don't know where he is.
Did you like hang out with him that
No,
year?
I didn't at all. And he came back and he never even met me. I was like, this guy's a jerk. Yeah, it was cold. Yeah, it was just a cold year. I had no connections that year. Wow. Drank a lot. And...
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to get that.
My life is going really well now. Just so everyone knows.
Okay. And all right, so back to McConnell's youthful adventures.
Yeah. So I also came to Asia after school, not Soy Cowboy after school.
For those of you who aren't aware, Soy Cowboy After School is a schoolgirl themed strip club, which is in Thailand called a Go-Go Club. So.
Yeah. It's called After School, SKOOL.
Right, because clearly there's not a lot of studying happening.
Yeah, if you guys want to go sometime. So I came to Asia for the first time when I was 18, I think, and I always really liked Asia. Like I always wanted to move to Asia. My dream when I was like 10 years old, I wanted to like move to Japan. I used to read, like we had this like textbook for like my elementary school, and there's like a chapter on Japan, and I like kept reading. I was like, this is so amazing. And like I used to like watch a lot of Japanese movies and stuff, and I started like teaching myself Japanese. Like,
so what you're saying is you're the stereotype of what people expect when they meet a foreigner in Asia.
Maybe. But yeah. So I really liked Asia in general and Asian culture in general. It wasn't just Japan. I also was really interested in Korea and China. So I used to like do like lots of research on them, and I was really I really wanted to come over here. And then but I kind of like after I finished high school, I just figured, I'll stay in America because, I have like, I don't, for those of you who don't know, my background is in tech mostly. Like I started a tech company when I was in high school. And so I was just kind of thinking, well, America is really like kind of like the tech hub of the world, and these are the skills I have. So I'll probably end up staying here, for most of my life, I guess, or whatever. And but then after I finished high school, I had all this free time, right? So I decided, well, I have this free time, I have this money that I have saved, so why don't I just go and like go to Japan? Because what else am I going to do right now? And
that's what most people think at 18. I've got this money that I've saved up for my business that I started 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really have anything. I want to just go to Japan for a bit.
Yeah. I was just asking myself, can I masturbate a third time? Yes, I can. I'm going to.
Yeah. So I went to Japan, and I did like a really long trip around all of Asia pretty much. I spent like 6 months, or maybe it was closer to a year. It was like 6 months to a year that I spent overseas. And even during that time, I was still kind of thinking, well, I'll probably go back to America and I'll start a company or something, and I'll just do that. But I had a really great time, and I really enjoyed. I met like a lot of new people in Asia, and I made a lot of good connections. All the experiences I had were really, really good. And when I got back to, I went back to America after that, and I was working for a couple of different companies in like tech space in America. And I was just really disappointed after I came back. Like everything was just really dull, you know, it was really boring and I didn't like it. And, you know, the sense of adventure was like totally gone. And, you know, I really found that I actually don't like American culture that much at all. You know, culture in Asia was much more, I felt much more at home in Asian countries than I did in America. So I was basically I went back to America for maybe a year or like a little bit less than a year or something. But during the whole time, I was just really depressed. Like it was awful. I just felt horrible.
so far away.
Yeah.
So far away.
Yeah. So I felt like I wasn't doing anything with my life. You know, I felt just like nothing was happening. I was making no progress. Even though I was working, I like didn't like the work I was doing really. So then I saved up all this money that I earned when I was, you know, back in America doing, you know, working for on one of those random jobs. And then I just said, oh, well, you know, I'll just go back. And then I just figured, you know, and I was kind of like, I tricked myself. I was like, oh, well, I'll just go back for like a few months. And, you know, I probably won't be able to like make it in Asia, but, you know, at least I'll be able to go and hang out for a while. And then I like came back and I just stayed. So, yeah.
And what were and when you stayed that next time, I mean, where did you go to?
I went. So actually, one of the reasons I came out was because I was already working with you on a bunch of Pickup Asia stuff. You know, I was like doing a lot of the web design at that point, and then I had just finished doing all the web design for the summit that year.
Oh yeah.
And then you were like, oh, you know, do you want to come speak? I can't remember if you invited me or if I was like, hey, maybe I can come speak on fashion. So for those of you who don't know, I did a lot of fashion work in New York, and I used to work for a fashion company in the States. So I offered to speak on fashion, and you were like, yeah, we would love to have you at the summit. So please come. And I was like, yeah, sure. So I just figured that I would go. So actually, that's one of the reasons why I came back around that time, because I came to speak at the summit.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I went to Hong Kong, and then after that, I went to Japan. And then I ended up, working in Japan for a while.
Ah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
And so how was your first 3 months? That was part of the... Because that was like the first time when I guess you kind of were sort of there to stay?
Yeah, well, the first 3 months...
The first time you came, you were just sort of traveling around.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't really planning on
living. So when you came back
there.
to stay,
yeah.
What was the first 3 months like, or the beginning of it?
Yeah, the first 3 months were kind of interesting because I was still kind of... I still wasn't sure if I was actually going to stay, and I didn't have any plan to stay, really. Or it wasn't like a solidified plan in my mind to stay. So I came back, and then I spoke at the summit. I met a lot of guys, and some guys wanted to do like consults, fashion consults with me, and so I like scheduled them for those. And then I just spent the first 3 months is really just me traveling around and doing kind of similar thing to what I had done before. And then I was just getting used to like just working from Asia for all the remaining contracts that I had, and just getting kind of set up. Like I spent some time in Southeast Asia during that period. I spent some time in Korea during that period.
That's when you got to know after school.
That wasn't until later. Yeah. So I hung out with you guys a lot during those first 3 months, like you and Vision in Korea, and it was just really nice, being back and like being able to travel again, and going to different countries again and seeing new things and meeting up with friends who I had met previously.
Right. I think one thing that's really interesting about living in Asia for Americans, maybe this isn't a thing for Europeans, but for Americans, in general, if you fly in a plane like for 2 or 3 hours, then you're still in America.
Right.
And it's a different city, and so maybe it's like slightly different, but pretty much you're still in America. Whereas, in Asia, you get on a plane, you go 2 or 3 hours, and you've like passed 2 or 3 different cultures, and you're somewhere totally different. And I know in Europe that's pretty normal if you're European, but for Americans, even if we go to Canada, it doesn't really feel that different. Or if we, I guess you go to Mexico, it feels more different. But certainly it seems like but it's not really like a huge.
It's like an island, really.
Yeah.
Like, we grew up on an island.
Yeah, so because of that, I think there's a certain really like extra romantic appeal
That's true.
for North Americans,
Yeah.
and in Asia in that respect. That maybe
Europe is
Europeans
kind
don't
of
have.
Europe is kind of similar. If you go to Europe, not being a European, you have that like a wide availability of a lot of countries, at your disposal. Yeah, so the first 3 months, like my first trip to Asia and the first 3 months when I came back to Asia was really just really nice. I was just really enjoying it. The hardest part for me was like integrating my life into Asia after that, because there was like a period where I was in Japan and I was in Tokyo, so I wasn't really around a lot of guys who we know, and I was working a lot, so I was just kind of like isolated, and it was weird because I was like where I wanted to be, but in terms of like how my life was playing out, I was just sort of like isolated, and I didn't really have a like really great social circle, and I wasn't traveling to different countries as much, so kind of the honeymoon period wore off a little bit, and it was just kind of frustrating. And then after I moved from Japan to Thailand. And that was also really frustrating because I didn't really have a good social circle there. But gradually, I built it up. And one of the things that I think is hardest is like being able to build a social circle in a different country or in a different place than what you're used to. I remember, I can't remember where I read this, but there was some article talking about how people who are in the military often have a really hard time when they finish their contracts and they come back to like normal, quote unquote civilian life, because, I can't remember what the term for this is, but this article talked about how you can only have a couple different socializations in life. You have your socialization when you're growing up, and that's when you like all your friends in school, your family, all your immediate friends and stuff during that period until you're 18 or so. Then you have a second socialization, and that's either in university or if you go to military, it's like in the military. And then once you finish university or the military, that's the group of people who you will probably finish. That's like your last social circle,
right?
Pretty much. And then if you leave that social circle, it's really, really hard to build another one because people become very complacent. And those social circles, they're given to you. You go to college and you have it. You go to the military, you have it. But if you don't have it, then you have to build it yourself, and that's really hard. And it takes it takes effort.
Concerted effort.
Right.
You can't just fall into it.
Exactly. So you have to make like a real effort to like go out to, if you're in a foreign country, especially where you don't speak the language, because you have to really make an effort to go out and go to things that might be uncomfortable or meet new people, maybe make an effort to learn like a language, to meet like local friends. And these are all these steps that you just wouldn't have to go through. So there's a huge period, I think, of integration when you move to a new country.
And I think that's why you have a lot of Western guys who end up spending a lot of time just at foreign bars or something like that, and they just go and hang out there in some place they feel pretty comfortable, and they just like maybe they make they start to make friends in that kind of environment.
Right.
So what did you do to get away from that?
Yeah, so going to co-working spaces was really helpful because then you have kind of built-in social circle there. Right. You can it's really easy to you're just around people, which is really good, and then most of them will speak at least some English. So that was really good. Going to co-working spaces, I was able to meet a lot of people through that. Going to meetups is really good. If there's like a meetup for something that you're interested in, is really good. If you can find people who do a sport that you're interested in, or so some kind of shared activity, that's really good. You can look on. It's really great to have access to like meetup.com and all these great sites that organize these things, because you can just go to these meetups and you can do something that you're interested in, or meet people who are interested in the same things.
You youngins have it so good. Back when I came to Asia, we didn't have any of that stuff.
Yeah.
But actually, before I get there, I wanted to reiterate about how especially what you were saying about the co-working spaces. I've also and now that those are around, I found those to be really great environments for meeting people. And I think that a lot of it's especially hard for Westerners when they come here, especially North Americans, because North Americans are I wouldn't necessarily say that North Americans are really want to be friends with everyone they meet, but they're certainly willing to be quite friendly with people that they interact with on a daily basis. So I remember when I first moved to Asia, one of the guys said, I really miss spontaneous moments with strangers. And what he meant was, for example, you're like trying to catch the train and you just miss it and someone in front of you just catches it. And if they see that you missed it, they'll be like, oh, and then you'll both have this moment where it's like, oh, I missed it. And they're like, oh, you missed it. And it's like a funny sort of moment, spontaneous interaction with strangers. But, Asians don't do that. So because Asians don't do that, people feel even more cut off. Or, it takes a lot longer if you have like a regular, let's say, coffee shop that you go to. It takes a lot longer before those people who work there will, maybe start an interaction with you. Whereas if you go to like Starbucks like 2 days in a row and you have the same barista, they'll be like, oh, you came here yesterday. And, already, even though that probably won't be a real social connection, it makes you feel like, oh, people want to include me. They don't, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's a really hard thing for people when they come here, is they feel not only do they, is it hard when you go to a new place to make friends, but you also have this feeling that people aren't interested in having interactions with you, but it's just, an Asian cultural thing.
Yeah.
So I think getting past that can be pretty tough.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the hardest kind of barrier to entry when you come to a foreign country. And I think that the people who can't make it past that barrier just end up leaving because it's really painful. I mean, if you're it's really frustrating to be like totally isolated in a place where you might not understand the culture fully, you don't understand the language fully. So I think that unless you have that built-in social circle, it's really tough. And that's one of the great things about guys who take our programs, right? I mean, they get like a built-in social circle.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
I
A
mean,
lot of people
we hang out with like all of our students all the time, so it's really good.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the guys. I mean, a lot of the times, the reason people take it is just because they're like, hey, like I want to hang out with you guys. Yeah. And so it's like, okay, well, let me just go and do this program, and then I have this crew of guys from who live all over Asia and have all these different experiences, who are very willing to share their their time and their knowledge and their expertise and whatever, and it's really nice. Definitely really, really good. Okay, cool. I guess it's my turn.
Yeah.
Tell us about Japan in the 70s.
Fuck you, buddy. Fuck you.
But it was different.
So we were kicking America's ass.
It'll be great to get a first-hand account of the Meiji Restoration.
For those of you who aren't aware, the Meiji Restoration happened in the 1800s, and it was Japan's like big leap forward from the feudal era to a modern industrialized state. So that's what he's referring to. That's funny. So my earliest memories of being interested in Japan are like Karate Kid. Okay, so I'm clearly dating myself, okay, but, Karate Kid, American Ninjas 1 through 4, I had the original Nintendo when it first came out with Robbie, the robot.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh yeah, you don't know this? Yeah, it's like.
Do you know this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the original, like, and it had like the gun. I had like it was a full set.
Did you have Duck Hunt?
Yeah.
Yeah, Duck Hunt.
Yeah. So one of the games my dad got, I think it was in 6th grade, was Nobunaga's Ambition. And it's not actually pronounced Nobunaga, but I didn't know that at the time. It's actually Nobunaga, for those of you who really are keen to know. And for many of you, you may not be able to tell the difference between those two things that I said. But anyway, if you say the first to a Japanese person, they'll look at you with a really confused face. If you say the second, they'll go, oh. Yeah. So, cool. so I started out with the original Nintendo. And my dad got, so in 6th grade or so, my dad got this game, Nobunaga's Ambition. And it's like, it's actually a type of game that doesn't really exist in America, I guess. It's like an Asian genre, but anyway, it's one of those you have to conquer Japan games. You start off as like one clan with like one territory, and you have to build up your armies and and all that, have enough rice to have enough rice for to build big armies and all that stuff. And in the back there was like biographies of the characters, short little paragraphs, saying, Nobunaga, no, I don't know if I should say it in like the English pronunciation. Anyway, Oda Nobunaga, I think is the way Westerners would say it. There's like a paragraph about, he did this and he conquered this and he killed these people and then he had all this territory and then his general killed him, and it had these short biographies and, and I was like, whoa, that sounds really cool, and so, so that was kind of like, I think probably the first thing that got me into like Japanese history. And then also around that time, I used to go to the comic book store a lot. And that was when Akira came out. Like, I don't know if are you familiar with Akira?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Okay, so, this was like the first anime to really be big internationally. Partially because it was really...
Is that the movie?
Yeah, the movie.
Yeah.
Partially because it was like when they did the English subbed version, the artist redrew all the mouths to look like English.
Wow.
So it was much more accessible. And so, that came out, and then that started making Americans much more interested in Japanese manga and anime, and so that was kind of the start. And so, so that's pretty much the origins of my interest in Asia in general. Would be sort of that was the budding point, and then my sister is 6 years older than me, and she graduated from university and went to Japan for a year as an English teacher, and so my whole family went to visit. So that was like my first time to go to Japan, and she had this good relationship with the Japanese family. So when we got there, we had like a really Japanese experience,
Cool.
And we went to like the onsen, and in something that's very disconcerting for Westerners is that when you go to the hot spring or the public bath, it's like all dudes naked, right? So as a Westerner, you're like, whoa. I'm surrounded by naked dudes. Like this is
finally.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. But I mean, definitely as Westerners here, we definitely have this thing that nakedness is not okay, and so for people to just be like, walking around naked, you're just like, oh, and then there's this Japanese tradition where you're supposed to, like, if you're there with your buddies, you all wash each other's backs. So that's really like, oh, anyway. So we were there with like and we so I had that experience. We were there over New Year's, and so we went to the temple, and they ring the bell at the temple like 108 times. That's like some Buddhist sacred magical number. There's like 108 magical Buddhas in the or something. Anyway, so you ring we went there and we waited in line. We rang the bell, and and then we traveled around the peninsula. They live in there's a peninsula in this part of Japan that no one knows about, and so we drove around there and we stopped at their family owned like a traditional Japanese inn, and we like stayed there, and we went to Kyoto, and it was just a very culturally immersive Japanese experience, and it was just like really cool. I was like, wow, that was awesome. Also, back in those days, you could get girly magazines with high school girls in them. So it was pretty cool because I was in high school. So, normally you have to look at like girls that, you definitely can't get because you're 25. Yeah. But, you could like go to the store and like there's like, like a 16-year-old girl's tits. And you're like, yeah, this is awesome. If I went to school here, I would totally get this, It was really funny because I was with my sister and I was like, hey, Jennifer, I want to go to the convenience store and, buy some souvenirs to bring back. And she's like, oh, okay. So we like go to the convenience store. Like my parents were staying in like with the family friend's place, and I was staying with my sister. So we go there, and I just go to the magazine rack, and my sister's like, oh my god, I'm just like grabbing all of these like I guess they would be called erotica probably, because maybe there's a bit of, I don't remember, but anyway, erotica. But anyway, so that was cool. I still have those in my drawer. Yeah, in America, in my drawer. Yeah, this served me well. Back before you could just get on the internet and find this stuff easily, you had to like hoard porn, and I still have this one. Anyway, this totally. All right. So anyway, so that was really the start of my interest in Japan, and the way that I actually ended up in Japan is that my when I graduated from university, or the year I was graduating, you know, when you're graduating, you're like, oh fuck, what am I going to do after I graduate? Holy shit, oh god, I don't know what I'm going to do, right? And you know, you're like, oh, I just graduated from high school. What am I going to do, right? But you know, but you always had the option to go to university. Whereas, you know, I mean, I guess we have the option to go to grad school, but it's like then it's just really expensive.
Yeah.
So you know, so I was like, so I just applied to everything. And one of the things was our school wanted us to apply for the scholarship to study, you know, overseas. And, you know, you had some choices about what countries, and I'd like studied 2 years of Japanese in university because then I was interested in Japan. And then also my minor was Spanish, so I was like, oh, okay, let me apply to go to, you know, some Spanish country, and let me apply to go to Japan. The Japanese application only required that you apply to the program and they set everything up for you. Whereas the other one, you had to choose a Spanish-speaking country, you had to apply to the university, and then you had to apply for the scholarship. So I was like, okay, I'll do like the Japan application first, and then I'll go back and do the other one. And then I got the scholarship. So, you know, because that scholarship is pretty well known, I thought, okay, well, I'll go and do the scholarship, and then I'll come back to America, and I'll be able to get like a better job offer than what I'd already gotten offered. So, that was so when I finished out my 1 year. So like everyone, I didn't plan to like stay for 15 years. Certainly.
Right.
And my first three months were, I think I had a kind of an easier time because that program, they know that people have trouble when they get there. So they have, you know, various systems in place to help integrate you, which, you know, you don't have when you show up to work, you know, especially in Korea. They're just like, you know, they really don't care. They just want you to show up and do your time. If you're miserable, it's irrelevant to them. Totally. But you know, when we get there was like an orientation, and you know, we meet all of the other people who live in Japan who are on these programs. So we kind of had like and then when I went to my university up in Sapporo, you know, there's like a guidance counselor there, and they take you around, and you know, they try and sort of help you out, and you know, so I had a pretty comparably easy integration process. And of course, being at a school, there's like other foreign students, so you know, I had it much easier than you two did because I wasn't really like kind of just on my own. You know, so
I think younger though. How old were you?
I was 22.
Okay.
And you know, I would say the hardest part about those first 3 months was that I was in Sapporo, and I had never been so incredibly cold in my life. It started snowing I got there in, you know, October 1st, and it started snowing on October 31st, and it didn't stop until April. It was awful. It was absolutely awful. And, you know, I'm from DC, and, you know, it snows like maybe 2 or 3 times a year there. And you're like, oh, wow, that's really nice. You know, but, you know, that it was just, and it was dark. It was awful. It gets dark at like 5. You know, it's just really bad. And I'm a night person, so I don't usually wake up until like 1. So I only get like 2 hours of sunlight. So yeah, but anyway, so that was probably the hardest part. That and I found myself hooked up with this crazy girl. So that also, you know, made my first. I was one of those guys who shows up and the first girl you get is just insane. Yeah. So that was the biggest problems that I had when I came to Asia. So yeah, that's my come to Asia story. Not very exciting, I guess. But
it was good.
Thank you.
I enjoyed listening to it.
Okay, cool. Well, so let's move on to the next question, which was it was about, you know, your development in game. When you started to get good at game, when was your absolute peak where you had a nice set of girls? So you know, I mean, I think first of all, you know, you know, when I started getting good, and my, you know, I guess the peak is kind of different because, you know, because when you have that skill, that's kind of there's another stage where you sort of figure out what you actually want to do with that skill, right? There's like definitely like, you know, there's like the stage where you're like getting good, you're like, oh wow, this is fucking sweet, and then there's a stage where you're like, okay, now I kind of have the setup that I want, and those things are kind of different. So maybe you could talk about, you know, getting good at game, and then maybe like what setup you want, or what setup you've had that you really liked, or any of the above. Yeah. Or anything that made you just go, yeah, I'm really glad I got this. I got this, man.
I got this. Yeah, for sure. For me, I think that the question of like peaks, I'm not sure if there's ever a peak because it's kind of like a journey that you're going on. And you're always like learning
It's
more
all
about
downhill
yourself.
from now.
Really?
It's all downhill. Wait. You maybe you
So
got
I'll
maybe
unpack
you-
it, I'll
maybe
unpack
you got
it.
1 or 2 more years.
And then what happens?
Then you're done.
Oh yeah, I'll get into chess. No, I mean like when I went out in the beginning, like the one thing that was still good about my experience in Asia before I took the boot camp, the course, was that I went out. So I mean like I don't know the sayings, like if you throw something at eventually
throw
you're gonna hit.
spaghetti at the wall. Some of it
Some will
will stick.
stick, yeah. So I mean, a lot of my buddies stayed in, but I was ambitious and I went out a lot and tried to meet lots of people. And I did meet lots of Korean guys that really changed my stay there because they connected me to some opportunities and maybe my social circles were a little bit better.
Was this in Daegu?
This is in Daegu. Yeah, the second year in Daegu. I kind of got a little bit smarter and maybe drank less and started just to talk, just approach. Maybe not necessarily attractive girls, but just I would just try to talk to people. Yeah.
Well, you really are. You really like people a lot.
I really
You
like
to
people.
interact
I'm lucky that way.
with people.
I'm definitely lucky. So a lot of people didn't have that same experience. But anyway, I would just say like there were still times when I just wanted to stay in my apartment, and I would just always say, just get out of your house. That's the first step. And
Absolutely.
so getting out of the house, that's what I started to do. But then, as you mentioned later, when I took the boot camp, that wasn't just because I wanted to meet like hot girls. I wanted a different social group. Like I had a social group of guys that I had made friends with, but their lives were getting very boring. They wanted to stay in and play Mario Kart. Nothing wrong with Mario Kart, but my life wasn't where I wanted it to be. And to get to the next level, Mario Kart wasn't going to take me there. They actually played this game where they play Mario Kart, and every time you do a lap or someone passes you, you have to take a drink of beer. And like I remember sitting there one night, and the one guy drank so much he had to throw up in the toilet, and then he sat back down and kept playing. And I was like, I need a new group of friends. And so when I met you and met a couple of guys and realized there's so much connected with people that learn pick up such a lazy word for what it is.
Yeah, it kind of underrates what really happens.
Absolutely. So like a guy that wants to take his life into his own hands.
Right.
In the terms of
you were like working on, you were like interviewing people.
Oh
at
yeah,
that time,
that's right. Yeah, so a little website about like entrepreneurs, right? I wanted to meet lots of entrepreneurs and interview them. So that's what I wanted to do first, and then when I
kind of like what is that? Think and Grow. Who's this guy who wrote Think and Grow Rich?
Napoleon Hill.
Yeah, it's like a Napoleon Hill. I'm going to interview the successful people and
I love
see
that
what
guy.
they knew.
I love that guy.
And
I've listened to his audio book so many times.
Oh yeah,
because it's like read by him, right?
Yeah. Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I never listened.
He's
to
like
it.
many industrialists during the 1930s. I'm like, this is good, fantastic.
Highly recommend this book.
Yeah, it is. It is a really
It's a
good
must
book.
read.
Definitely changed my thinking. Yeah, but I met you, and I met. Then I started meeting like other guys in your social group, like Vision and Socrates, and not only did you guys talk about women, but you were also interesting events and doing stuff, starting businesses, and so that was really exciting for me. So I took that course.
I think we talk a lot about sort of lifestyle and trying to build a really great lifestyle.
Yeah, health, wealth, love, everything.
Yeah.
Just like better.
Yeah,
better.
I mean, most all of the guys are in shape.
Yeah.
Some people are still struggling.
But that's
The
just it.
struggle is real.
Everyone's struggling to get better in the group.
Yeah.
And I was super attracted to be a part of. So then take that to girls, and then after I took the boot camp. So I was just talking really big about how great it was to meet all the guys. Well, it was pretty awesome getting all the girls too. So now, like I would say, like with getting lots of girls here, it's just really powerful when you can walk up to a woman and start talking to her. Blew my mind. Taking that first weekend blew my mind. And even when I do it, when we hang out and I approach a girl, every single time I'm like, oh my God, I'm talking to this girl, blah, 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 blah. When I keep saying words, oh, she's touching me. So it's still super exciting to me. And now I'm in Asia, and the girls that I date, I'm really happy to sit with them. I'm really happy to drink coffee with them. I'm really happy if they come back to my apartment. I'm so excited when we have sex, how amazing it is, right? Compared to when I first came to Korea and I drank a lot and I slept with a couple girls. It was so bad. I'll tell that story later when we're going to talk about sex situations.
Story.
Yeah. So for me,
We
get the right crew.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
What about you? Let's. When did you start getting good at game? So if people have listened to the other podcasts, you might know that I took a boot camp when I was 15 with RSD.
Those middle school girls were rough.
Yeah. So I decided to take a boot camp, and I remember I called the they have like an 800 number on RSD's website, and I was like, oh, and I called them, and the guy was like, oh, so which city do you live in? I'm like, well, I'm closest to New York, and they were like, oh, that's great, we can do like, you could do like a weekend boot camp, and I was like, yeah, I'm 15, and they were like, the guy was like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, we can teach you, but he's like, so what because I guess they're supposed to evaluate your skill level, right? So they can like and they're like, so do you do this stuff with girls at your school? And I was like, well, I try to, but I'm still like learning. And he was like, oh, he's like, well, that's cool. He said, well, I guess since we can't go to clubs, we'll have to do like a day game boot camp, or like just all during the day approaches and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's fine. And it was actually really cool because my instructor was he was like really, really good with like day game, and I guess they chose him because obviously we weren't going to any clubs, so and he was just a really
you guys could have run in front of the club game.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
Yeah. So anyway, I had a really good time doing that, and yeah, like right after I did that, I remember the first thing that I did was it's 3 days, right? And then I remember going home after, because I lived outside of the city, and I remember going home after the boot camp, and I was just so exhausted that I slept for I took like a 4 or 5 hour nap or something when I got home, because it's just, there's so much new, so many new concepts that you get, just from being around somebody who's doing all this kind of radical self-improvement stuff for 3 days straight. So I remember, I took this huge nap, and then it was just so insane. And when I went back to, I changed the way I dressed. For those of you who don't know, I looked really horrible, but prior to, I had really long hair.
I don't believe
out
it.
of shape. Yeah, I was disgusting. And so I went back to school. That was during the summer. So I went back to school after that. And I'd I'd cut my hair, and I started working out, and I changed my clothes, and everyone was like, "Oh my god!" and so that was really cool. And then I lived in a small town, so a lot of it was not. There wasn't I couldn't really.
So that was like a Beauty and the Beast moment for you.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. So I don't know. I got to it was cool because there were these
to change your handle to the Frog Prince.
So there were girls who I thought I couldn't talk to prior to that, and then afterwards I met them. And
dude, you can't talk to those girls. They're the cool girls.
Yeah, exactly.
Fat Lexus crew.
Yeah. So so I guess I don't know. I really don't feel like I'm really good at game. I mean, when I was in high school, I guess I did pretty well. I mean, I did better than I
certainly better than you did in middle school.
That's true. That's true. So, yeah. So I don't know. In terms of peaking and having good setups, I don't really think my setup is good.
What about when you were in Thailand?
Yeah, I guess in Thailand my setup was pretty good. Yeah, I had girls that I was happy with that I was dating, and I guess I was pretty happy. But it's it's always, I'm like this with everything. It's I always try to get better. So there's always things that I'm really horrible at.
Then what would be your ideal setup?
I don't know.
This guy. When we were talking about blood sports earlier, he was thinking about flogging himself in his room. You suck!
Oh no.
So, yeah. I don't know. Ideal setup. Well, I think, first of all, you just have to, you have to meet a lot of people.
For you, I mean. You personally.
Huh?
Your personal ideal setup.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is that I think, part of getting an ideal setup is meeting a lot of people so that you can choose people who you want to have, who you want to date. So I guess dating at least one or two girls who I really want to spend time with, who I'm really interested in, and I'm willing to spend really long periods of exposure with, going on trips, and people who are or girls who are willing to travel and who are a pretty good match sexually. Yeah, I guess, I don't know what else ideal setup. being in Japan. I don't know. No, but really, I guess I'm quite content with my life now, because right now, I mean, I get to go and like work on all my skills all the time, and you know, I get to, like, during the week I get to work on like business, and then on the weekend I get to go out and meet new girls, and you know, eventually I'll meet girls who I want to keep around like a really long time, and yeah, so I don't know. I guess I feel like every day is like sort of my ideal setup, and I'm just keep working towards making it better and better.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. I'm surprised. I thought you were going to tell us about, you know, the glory days at after school.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, interesting. He's so modest.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, great. So let's see. Yeah, I mean, so I was really bad for a really long time, which I think is kind of good, because when I'm working with my clients, like whatever problems they're having, I can relate to it, because whatever sticking points or issues they're running into, I struggled with that for like months before I figured it out, and you know, now I can sort of just help them. I think a lot of guys who are pretty advanced, if they got good really quickly, oftentimes they have trouble understanding, because they just blew past those like sticking points so quickly that they don't even really remember them, or remember what they did to get through it, or maybe they didn't even have it. But I had like every sticking point ever. Yeah, except actually there's one sticking point I didn't really have, which was I didn't have that much problem with the initial approach, but that was just because, you know, I started. Because I went to an all-boys school, and you know, from the time I was 12, the only chance I had to talk to a girl was the only chance I had to talk to her. You know, there wasn't like going to be, oh yeah, I'll see her tomorrow, and you know, or we were in class together or something. It was like the only way I met any girls was through cold approach. So in that regard, you know, I think I just had like the desire of desperation that allowed me to just go, okay, it has to be now or never. Yeah. And you know, my approaches were just really shitty and they didn't work. But it was like, well, you know, at least you know, a 0.01% chance is better than a 0.0% chance. So that was sort of, you know, so for me that was kind of early on. I was already approaching long before I even knew about game. And actually, I remember one of the first time that I like sort of pulled a really hot girl. You'd just been like, you know, trying to approach all these girls, and they all blew me off. And then she just thought it was really funny that I was getting blown out so hard. And then, you know, and for some reason she was kind of responsive. That turned into a disaster in the end. But you know, but that was sort of everything was I ran that like really, really well. And that's when I kind of started getting good. So I started getting good when I was about 25, 26. So I remember when I was, you know, like October 2004 was when I got my first street, like girl off the street, you know, like I opened her on the street and then I closed her. But it was really, really like it was so bad. We like met up for coffee and it was really boring. I mean, I was really boring. And then, you know, we went and like, we went and rented a DVD and I let her pick, and it was like Eddie Murphy's Haunted House. So that was really boring. And then like, you know, I didn't really know how to make a move on a girl. So I was just like sitting there, like, I don't know, waiting or thinking that magically something was going to happen, you know, like in the movies where you like look at each other and it's like, that's it. That's the moment.
That's the moment.
And, you know, but so I was just, and then the credits started rolling after I had watched all of Eddie Murphy's Haunted House. And I was like, okay, I guess I should try doing something. Luckily she was responsive. But the thing that was really great about that is this was like the first time when I like really like, where I picked a girl up and I like set up a date with her, and while it was actually everything about it was pretty bad, like it was like it was pretty smooth, I guess you could say. Whereas and then not only that, but like, you know, I was able to like keep her around and she kept seeing me, which was one of the major sticking points I'd had previously. So
it's like that Jim Rohn thing, right? When they invite you back, it says something.
Yeah, it says something.
It says something. She keeps seeing you. That means something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Jim Rohn. Love Jim Rohn. I'm going to link you guys to some Jim Rohn because you can never get too much Jim Rohn, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And Yeah, so that was sort of so the beginning was for me was actually a lot of fun. I think a lot of guys when they first start out, it's like this big struggle. But for me, it was fun because I was hanging out with a lot of guys who just wanted to go out and have a good time and try and meet a lot of girls. And because in some ways, because we didn't know that there was game, we would just try anything. And so there was sort of a level of freedom because there was nothing that we knew was like kind of right or wrong, or we just stand on the street with a box of condoms and point at girls and point at the box and hey, are you interested? And we could just do that, and we didn't go, oh, you know what, if I was doing something else my chances would be higher, because we just didn't know. So in that way it was sort of there was a certain freedom and fun around it. That I guess some people would say that when like game, maybe it takes away. But on the other hand, you have a lot more success, and you actually end up talking to more girls. So it's pros and cons, and cons. There's a lot of nights I went out where just really absolutely nothing happened at all. It was just blowouts, me trying to the girls are dancing and me sliding up behind them and bumping them and then trying to get my grind on, and then girls just looking over their shoulder and being like, ugh, and then slinking away. I mean, it was just a lot of stuff that, like I said, it was fun, and there's a certain amount of freedom to the fact that you don't really know what works, so you can just have fun doing anything and you don't feel like you're wasting time. But on the other hand, you're wasting time, and you're missing out on lots of really great opportunities. And you're not really building a skill set. You're just going out having some fun, and sometimes things fall into place. But it made me have a really good mindset around approaching girls, for sure. And then when I started learning about game, then it was just a whole nother level. Now it was oh, okay, there's stuff that if I do this stuff when I'm talking to girls, it'll work better. This is awesome. And so in 2005, that was my first year to have I had sex with 5 new girls that year, and I got one back from the year before that was the best girl I'd ever gotten, and I got her back using not being boring and using game stuff, and it was great, and they were really happy, and they stuck around, and and it was just and actually that one from 2004, I still can see her today, when I want to, if I'm if we're in the same city or whatever, and it's really amazing because before then it was I just didn't really know what to do or how to treat girls well, and how to make it so they would enjoy interacting with me. So they would just disappear. But now they just they like me. They genuinely like me, and they want to keep being around me and seeing me and stuff. And that's really amazing because I went to an all boys school, and I didn't really think that girls could really like me for a really long time, just because I just didn't have that opportunity. I didn't really have female friends because I went to an all boys school, and you have your female friends who are oh, you'll find someone someday. You're a really nice guy, and you're someone someday, but not you. But you know me. Why would somebody who doesn't know me like me more than someone who knows me? And I think there was kind of a peak was when I really had all my game dialed in pretty well. And it was the year before I started teaching. And it was my peak in terms of lifestyle as well. So at that time, I felt comfortable pretty much approaching any girl that I was really into. If I saw a girl I was really into, it's oh yeah. I remember I was talking about starting to teach with my buddy, Big J. And me and Big J I used to hang out a lot and had a lot of pretty crazy adventures before, this is in the beginning when we were learning game. And he thought that the idea of me teaching was just so ridiculous. He was this really hot girl walked in. He's if you get that girl, I'll fucking learn from you. And and it wasn't and I didn't actually ever get this girl, but there's that'll be a good story for later. Oh yeah. But I just went over and approached her. I chatted her up. And I had I had several dates with her, and it never did work out for reasons that I still am not sure about. But it definitely there was some hilarity involved. But that's a great example of what it was like, where we were sort of pushing each other and just having a lot of fun with it. And I think the year before I started teaching, and I guess the year when I was teaching was when I first started teaching was also really good. And I had I had about 6 to 10 girls on the go. like I had like I had like 6 girls that were like really what I would call like really solid regulars. I would see, 2 of them, 2 of them I would see every week at least. And then the other 4, I would see them at least twice a month. And then I had what I call cameo girls. Cameo girls are not like regulars, but they like make cameos in your life. Randomly they'll message you and they'll be like, oh, hey, what's going on? And then, you'll meet up with them. So I had like, 6 really solid girls and like 4 cameo girls. And, the girls would like come and go, of course. They would stick around for a few months. Some of them would stick around for a long time. And for me, that was like an amazing. And it was really motivating for me to work harder because like I had these girls and I wanted to do stuff with them. And so it was really motivating for me to, try and, do better with business and build a better lifestyle and overall. And yeah, so that was a really great time. And my first year teaching was a lot of fun because I started traveling. And then when I started traveling, I started like meeting girls in other cities and, in other countries also when I started teaching in other places. And that was a lot of fun as well. But I'd say from the lifestyle perspective, like that year before, because I was in one place and I could have a very, when you travel a lot, it really messes up your lifestyle. Your relationships are kind of messy because you're not around all the time. And, and you go someplace and you meet girls that maybe you really like, but nothing's going to happen with them because you're leaving. And, and you can't. So it's much harder to really build like what I want, right? But yeah, that was I guess my peak. Yeah, so there you go. That's my peak. Although some people might argue that my peak might be from our discussion of threesomes before.
Right. Yeah.
But in terms of overall, like happiness. When I look back, kind of nostalgically, I would say that was the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember like in 2005. I think I had like 3 girls come over in a row, and I had sex with like 1 in the morning and 1 at night, and then I had 1 came over at night, and then I had sex with her at night, and then in the morning, then she left, and I had like my work and stuff during the day. The next girl came over, and I had sex with her that night, and then in the morning, and then she left, and then I did my work stuff, and then I had another one, and I was like, wow, like I never had that much sex in my life ever, and it was like with 3 different girls who I thought were really attractive, and I was so incredibly tired. On that next day, I was like a zombie. And I was just, that was so amazing for me because, I'd been like such a big loser who couldn't get anything at all for like, a large part of my life. So, I guess that was kind of a moment where I was like, wow, my life is really different now.
Yeah.
And I want to say that, I don't think it's important that you sleep with a lot of different girls. This is very important, I think, that I say this. I really don't think it's important that you sleep with a lot of different girls. It's about, what, each person needs their own thing. For some guys, there are guys out there who they've slept with lots of girls, but they've never like had a relationship with the girl they really wanted. And that can be the big thing for them. Was like, wow, there's a lot of guys that pick up who are like, yeah, I bang a lot of girls, but the ones I really want, they never stick around. And so for that guy, if he gets a girl who he really likes to stick around, that can be the transformational moment that really makes them feel that, they're going somewhere with their lives. For other people, it might be, like in my case, like, I could get girlfriends, like girls who, I just treated them really nicely and they felt that I was a good guy who was, going someplace in life and they wanted to be with me because of that. But I was never like the guy who was like the cool guy or the hot guy. And so for me, having girls be like, wow, you're so cool. Like, you're so cool. And of course I was like, what's wrong? These girls are fucking crazy. But okay, I'm glad you think so, but you're wrong. And have that for the first time. And at some point, after having that experience enough, really being able to accept that, yeah, there are a lot of girls who actually do feel that way. And I guess that means that if they feel that way, it must be true at some level, even though it may not be for me. So, I think everyone, when they get into game, they have their own thing that will be revelation for them or transformational for them. For some guys, it's they never had sex at all with a girl who they didn't have to pay. I've had guys who were 30 years old, and that was the first time a girl like wanted to have sex with them, and that's an amazing feeling to go, wow, here's a girl who chose me because I'm me. Mm. So, I just want to be clear because there's a lot of people out there who think that pickup is about sleeping with lots of women. And it can be if that's what that person needs for their personal development, but it doesn't have to be. You know, it's just like the guy who gets rich and goes out and buys a Lamborghini, and then, you know, a couple months later realizes that, you know what, actually I don't really care about Lamborghinis. You know, it's just a developmental phase, and I think that one of the problems with, you know, the way pickup is perceived by other people is that, you know, they don't realize that it's just people who are, you know, trying to do something with their lives, and they don't always make the best decisions. And, you know, sometimes that means that they might hurt other people, whether they, you know, without meaning to, and people take that to, these guys are bad and they're doing the wrong thing. And, you know, it's not really true. They're not, you know, in the same way that when that girl that you really like and you're like, I'll do anything for you, and she's like, and she sneers at you, you know, in the same way that she is treating you badly by not giving you what you want. It's the same thing for guys when they're developing and pickup. You know, I'm sure that girl theoretically would like you to be happy.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing, you know. Guys aren't going around. Most guys. I mean, there are some guys that are extremely like damaged who are going around being like, "Ha, look what I did to her." And, you know, but also I think, you know, that's also a phase that some guys need to go through, and then after a while they just realize, you know, it's just there's no reason to treat people like that. Illusion used to be like that, and he was like that, and then he became a host. And for those of you who don't know what hosting is, it's basically girls pay guys to drink with them. And not surprisingly, a lot of the girls who do this are like prostitutes themselves, or they're hostesses themselves. So they have to kind of take a lot of abuse from their customers sometimes. And so when they like it when they can go to an environment and it's not like their boyfriend who they have to like, you know, be nice to, and they have to treat him well and all this, whatever. They're paying this guy to drink with them, and they expect to get what they want. And so, you know, but it's kind of like a reverse dynamic too, because the guy who's the host is also trying to get what he wants, which is generally speaking money. And so there's this kind of really bad dynamic. And so Illusion was really used to be like this guy who just wanted to, you know, take what he could from people. And after being a host, it really, you know, changed him, and he realized, hey, you know what, it's really not good to do that sort of thing to people.
Yeah. There's a really good documentary about this for people listening called The Great Happiness Space. That's about the Japanese hosting, you know, community.
Right.
And, you know, it's really good because they follow this like this one group of hosts who work at this hosting bar
in Osaka.
Yeah, in Osaka. And it's really interesting because you really see the full, like, the dynamic, because they interview a lot of the girls who go to the host, and they interview the host themselves. And you really see like what that dynamic looks like, and then you can also, it's really great because you then think about how that dynamic works outside of, you know, this profession, and like how that dynamic could play in real relationships, you know, in the real world. So yeah, it's really good. We'll link to it, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great idea. And, you know, and this hosting thing is something that exists all over Asia. It's not exclusive.
And hostessing.
And hostessing also.
Yeah.
You know, this is like an Asia-wide thing. So, you know, it's pretty culturally relevant all around the region.
By the way, we're already at an hour for the podcast.
Oh,
so
really?
Did you want to answer? I guess we could do another one where we talk about the sexual stuff.
Yeah, okay, let's do that. All right, so next time, guys, we'll be back with interesting sex stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for listening, and see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
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 Bye-bye.